8.2 Light-dependent reactions. The reactions of photosynthesis can be split into two groups. The first group is called the light-dependent reactions because they require sunlight, and then a second set of reactions which are the light-independent reactions. In the light-dependent reactions, radiant energy is absorbed, and this is going to excite some electrons. The energy in those excited electrons can then be used to produce ATP and another molecule called NADPH. NADPH is very similar to the NAD that we saw in the previous lesson of cellular respiration. This is an electron shuttle which is involved in some oxidation reduction reactions of photosynthesis. These light-dependent reactions occur in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. There are two different pathways that we will look at in the light-dependent reactions. These are called the cyclic and the non-cyclic pathways. The second set of reactions, the light-independent reactions, involve a series of reactions which are called the Calvin cycle. These do not require light, but they are going to utilize the NADPH and the ATP, which was produced in the light-dependent reactions, and make some carbohydrate. The Calvin cycle reactions occur in the stroma of the chloroplast. Solar energy capture. How do we drive those light-dependent reactions? The chlorophyll and the keratin molecules are clustered in two photosystems embedded in the thylakoid membrane. These are called photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. They're actually named based on the order in which they were discovered. The first one that was discovered was called photosystem 1, and then later a second system, photosystem 2, was discovered. So they are named based on how they were discovered, not the order in which they work. But these photosystems act like little light-gathering antennas. So they are going to absorb specific wavelengths of light, and the energy from those wavelengths of light is going to be passed around through these chlorophyll molecules until it reaches two specific chlorophyll molecules which are called the reaction center. And some electrons in this reaction center are going to become excited. When an electron absorbs just the specific photon with just a specific amount of energy, that electron can jump up into a higher orbital. So this is called excitation of the electron. Now that excited electron can do a couple of different things. Many times that excited electron will immediately drop back down into its original orbital. Whenever this happens, that energy that was absorbed is going to be released as a photon of light. However, what can occur in plants is when that electron becomes excited, before it has an opportunity to drop back down into that less energetic orbital, it gets passed to an electron acceptor. And so now that energy that was absorbed by that electron has been captured. Before it was able to drop back down to its base normal orbital, it's grabbed by this electron acceptor molecule, and so a little bit of energy has now been captured by the plant. Let's look first at the non-cyclic electron pathway. This is called the non-cyclic pathway because an electron can be traced from water eventually to an NADPH molecule. So it's going to begin in that photosystem. As that photosystem absorbs light, the energy from that light is going to be passed from one chlorophyll molecule to another. It will eventually reach that reaction center where an excited electron then jumps up and is accepted by the electron acceptor. So again, this is where the energy is actually captured. That excited electron then is going to be passed down an electron transport system, and this is very similar to the electron transport system that we saw in the previous lesson on cellular respiration. As this electron passes down the electron transport system, we create a proton gradient and again can produce ATP in the molecule called ATP synthase. Eventually, this electron is passed over to photosystem 1. Photosystem 1 can also absorb specific photons of light, and the electron can be accepted once again. After this electron is excited the second time, it is passed over to an NADP molecule, and that NADP molecule is reduced to form NADPH. Again, this is the non-cyclic pathway because the electron that began in water eventually is passed over to NADPH. The electron has to be replaced. That electron that was excited and ejected from photosystem 2 has to be replaced, and so water molecules are constantly being split, and one of the electrons from the splitting of water is going to replace the ejected electron in photosystem 2. This is where the oxygen byproduct is produced in photosynthesis. So the non-cyclic pathway produces both ATP and NADPH. Those molecules then can be used in the light-independent reactions of the Calvin cycle to produce glucose. Plant cells can also participate in what is called the cyclic electron pathway. The cyclic electron pathway does not involve photosystem 2. It only uses photosystem 1. So here's a diagram of just photosystem 1 and how it can be involved in the cyclic pathway. As photosystem 1 absorbs energy, an electron is going to be excited, passed up to the electron acceptor, and then comes down an electron transport system to produce ATP, but in this case that electron ultimately ends up right back in photosystem 1. And so this is called the cyclic pathway because that electron is in fact cycling. So this produces only ATP and no NADPH. The cell does require more ATP in the Calvin cycle than NADPH, and so it is possible to run only photosystem 1 in this cyclic pathway in order to produce the additional ATP which is needed by the cell. But again, to summarize our light-dependent reactions, we can make both ATP and NADPH. Both of those are required for the Calvin cycle reactions to produce glucose.